Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you are new, and today we are tackling some really fun projects. Josh just helped me carry up quite a few pumpkins because we're gonna process 2024's pumpkin. Over the weekend, we had a family dinner that we went to, and my mother-in-law asked if I would bring a dessert. And this is what sparked this entire day of projects we're gonna do today, is she asked me to bring a dessert. I brought a pumpkin bundt cake that I had pulled out some pumpkin from 2023's garden that was frozen, and I didn't use all the pumpkin. And I was thinking, what should I do with that pumpkin? And over the weekend, I was having fun looking through my soap book because we only have a few bars of homemade soap left from last time we made soap together. And I found this recipe for a pumpkin oatmeal soap. Josh's favorite soaps usually have oatmeal in them. And so we are gonna make this pumpkin oatmeal soap today with this leftover pumpkin. And then I have 2 soap molds, so I wanna make more than one type of soap if I'm gonna have all of my soap equipment out. So we are gonna make this vanilla bean egg yolk soap as well because I happen to have all the ingredients for that. And how beautiful does that soap look? Since I thought we are gonna work with pumpkin today, let's go ahead and process last year's pumpkin so that I have this in the freezer because I only have one more serving of pumpkin from 2023's pumpkin in the freezer. So let's go ahead and take care of 2024's pumpkin as well. Those are gonna be roasting for quite some time. So that's why I figured I could get some soap made while those are in the oven cooking. And we can't have a pumpkin making day without making some sort of yummy pumpkin food. So we're gonna make these pumpkin spiced muffins with a cream cheese filling as well. I'm actually gonna make the pumpkin muffins with this pumpkin here because this is the last of 2023's pumpkin, and that way it can be all used up. I have all of my ovens preheating to 400 degrees. I'm just gonna put this in the sink, run a little bit of water over it. This will thaw relatively quickly because I froze it flat. And this is some cream cheese I pulled out of the freezer earlier today so we can make our cream cheese filling with that cream cheese. Okay, I'm gonna get some lights turned on and I'm gonna organize this space. I'm trying to think what order I wanna do these 3 projects in. I think what we should do first is put all of our soap making equipment in one spot. And let's go ahead and process these pumpkins first so that those can be baking while we do other things. This is gonna take a very long time to process these pumpkins. I actually don't think it's gonna take a long time to cut them down and process them. What's gonna take a long time is for them to cook. So while these are cooking, we will make our soap and our muffins. I do wanna wash them off though first because they've been down in my basement and it's kind of dusty. And so I figured let's go ahead and wash off all that dust. We're gonna process 5 pumpkins today. And we obviously grew probably 25 pumpkins, and a bunch of those pumpkins are food for my chickens, which, by the way, I just ordered 10 chickens. So those won't be here till June, but I'm really excited. I got some fancy breeds that are gonna be fun because my chickens turn 5 next month and they don't lay very much anymore. But because these pumpkins came from the garden, I never washed them after bringing them in from the garden, and they've just been sitting in a basement. I don't need to scrub them, just give them a good wash here, just to get any sort of dust or anything off. Oh, you know what? This pumpkin, I don't think this pumpkin is for us anymore. I'm gonna toss that one to the chickens. I could grab another pumpkin, or we'll have enough pumpkin between these 4. This pumpkin is not moldy, but I can see that it's a little soft. I'm gonna give that one to the chickens too, and I can grab one more if I need to. But I don't think I need to. These are 3 really large pumpkins here. Now, a crazy thing about this pumpkin here that I have is that this pumpkin started out blue, and as it's been sitting down in the pantry I harvested it, I think in either September. I think it was September. It was blue and it's been sitting down there since then, and it has turned orange. So I'm curious to see what it looks like inside. I asked you guys if that was normal. You said it was normal, that sometimes pumpkins can go from green or blue to orange. So here we go. Let's cut into this pumpkin and see what it looks like on the inside. I think I'm gonna keep my knife in there and I'm gonna use another knife to go this way. Ooh, it smells good. I can already smell it. Wow, it smells super, super sweet. It looks beautiful, and I cannot believe how sweet this smells. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop out all these seeds. I'm not gonna save these seeds because I grew, I think, like 10 or 15 varieties of pumpkins in my garden, and pumpkins cross-pollinate. So if I saved these seeds, I would have no idea what kind of pumpkin I'm getting. Pumpkins are one of my favorite things to grow. And so I want to know that when I plant a pumpkin seed, it's more likely than not going to be what I think it's going to be when it actually grows into a pumpkin. So these pumpkin seeds will go to my chickens. And I think what I'm going to do is just, should I leave this in this whole half and just throw this in the oven like this? I have put up pumpkin a couple different ways. I have frozen it, I have freeze-dried it, and I've canned it. My favorite way is freezing it because it's the easiest, takes the least amount of effort, and you'll see it thaws so quickly, and I just find it to be the most convenient and easiest method for putting it up and then for going to use it. So that's what we're gonna do today. Okay, easy enough. Should I cut this into smaller pieces? Will it cook faster if it's cut into smaller pieces? Maybe I could fit more in my roaster if I do that. I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna get this cleaned out here. I have an idea. I think I can get this whole pumpkin in my oven if I use my big cookie sheet, baking sheet, like this. Let's see. That worked. This is gonna take probably 2 hours to cook. That's why I figured I would get all the pumpkin put up for this year at one time so that I can messy up the kitchen with this project, and then I won't have to think about processing pumpkins again, because I think these 3 pumpkins will be more than enough. As long as these look nice and orange and dense on the inside. If I remember correctly, the seed packet said these were good eating pumpkins too, but I can't remember. I don't think I've ever cooked these up before, but I have more pumpkins downstairs I could grab if these don't look nice and orange on the inside. These are called a white flat stacker, and it's more of a decoration pumpkin, but almost any pumpkin, not all, some of them are stringy and kind of watery. Ooh, this one looks nice. It's gonna be a little bit difficult to get the seeds out, so I'm gonna cut it in a couple different pieces here. What if I cut it in half? Yeah, that'll work. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Might be able to just cut the seeds out. Oh yeah, this one has a little bit more pumpkin to it. It's not quite as deep orange as the little one, but there's quite a bit more flesh to it, so it's gonna be easier to get the seeds out. Because I can actually get my spoon in there. That is probably enough pumpkin for us for the year. Those are 2 huge pumpkins, plus I put part of that 3rd pumpkin in there, and I think that will be good. There you go, girls. They've had a lot of pumpkin this year, but it just usually takes them a second. Hey, sweet boy. There we go. Josh is also looking at new coops as well. So I'm really looking forward to potentially this spring having a whole new chicken coop set up and run, and it be more functional for my 5-year-old chickens and for the new chickens we're gonna be getting. Feels really good out here. It's been pouring for the past 3 days. We officially have one project underway, and I need these bowls to make our soap with. So let's go ahead and wash them out, wash my hands because we were out there with the chickens, and it looks like our pumpkin puree is basically now thawed at this point. I am gonna scrub these bowls with some soapy water and get them all nice and ready to go. Josh is grabbing me some more kitchen towels because this is the last one I have. I want to get my space all clean, and then we can start on our next project. Kind of want to reset. I did read over my soap making recipes this morning, and I kind of reread over the safety techniques. I am not an expert soap maker. I have only made soap a few times. And so every time I do it, I feel like I need to reread all of the safety measures that you want to put in place. Oh, thank you. The nice thing is tonight I don't have to worry about making dinner. We made dinner together last week, and I still have a couple servings of some of that so that we can just enjoy that for dinner tonight. I don't really have to think about cooking dinner. But I do want to get some muffins made because we are out almost of all the muffins and waffles we made last time we did a freezer cooking day. So it would be nice to have some fresh muffins we can enjoy. We still have quite a bit of bacon and sausage in the freezer, so this week we can enjoy muffins and bacon and sausage, or eggs for breakfast if we want to. Not eggs for my chickens. They are not laying. I'm lucky if I get 3 eggs a week. My chickens are, like I said, they turn 5 in March, the end of March, and it's still winter, so they're not really laying anything. But I do have where I get my milk. they also sell eggs. So I'm able to get eggs from a local farmer right now, which is awesome. I think I'm gonna let this sit here and dry for a bit before I put that away. Now that we have our pumpkin cooking, I want to go ahead and get my muffins started so those can bake while we start on our 2 different types of soap we're going to make today. I am using a recipe that calls for fresh ground flour, so I'm going to be measuring out spelt and soft white wheat berries today for this recipe. I can link this pumpkin recipe down below for you, and her cookbook. I've been cooking a lot of her recipes out of her cookbook lately, and so far they've all been pretty delicious. This is not an exception to that. So here is our flour. And like I said, I am new to soap making. I've made soap probably over the last 10 years, probably 6 or 7 times, but there's usually a couple years between each time I make soap. And some of those attempts, the soap attempt has been pretty poor. But the last few times I've made the soap, they've turned out fantastic. And we have been exclusively using the soap that I made last time, and we're loving it. Josh loves it, and if Josh loves it, then I consider that a win. It doesn't take much for me to be excited about homemade soap, but Josh is the one who's a little bit more particular in our family about the soap we use. And so since he's been really enjoying it, it's been giving me the kind of motivation to keep on the homemade soap journey. Now, my ultimate goal when it comes to making soap is I want to have a whole collection of soap in my pantry where I keep kind of our like toiletry items. And I want to have a little collection of different types of soap so that when we go down into our pantry to grab a bar of soap, we have multiple different soap varieties to choose from. And eventually we can really figure out and hone in what our favorite types of homemade soap are, and the only way to do that is to try a bunch of different types of soaps. And I also want to have a little collection down there so that when I need a gift, I can run downstairs and grab a couple different soaps and I can give the gift of homemade soap. Now, the one thing about soap is it does have to sit for a good 4 to 6 weeks before you can use it, and if it sits longer, the better. And so that's why I am starting my journey now of starting to build our homemade soap collection. At this point, though, we're not making soap yet. We're making muffins. I have added the dry ingredients, the wet ingredients. I'm going to get this all mixed together. I almost forgot to add the pumpkin, even though today's theme is pumpkin everything. And so I mix all of the ingredients together, and then I realize, oh gosh, we need to make sure we add our pumpkin to this. But it turns out just fine that I forgot to add the pumpkin when I was supposed to add the pumpkin to this recipe. And I did not realize that this recipe needs to sit for 15 minutes before we can bake it. So what I do is I end up putting the pumpkin and the cream cheese mixture that I make on the other side of the counter, and then I switch to start making soap. And then I realize, you know what? We should really get these muffins in the oven and not try to make soap and muffins at the same time. So you're going to see that I'm going to switch my focus to the soap, but before we really get into the soap, we're going to come back and finish these muffins. Now, Orbit might sometimes need a break from the little dog, but these 2 little guys are best friends, which I think is absolutely incredible and so cute. So let's check in on our pumpkin. It is probably about halfway done. So this is perfect time to switch focus onto our soap. So I'm going to show you the 2 soaps we made out of her book last time we made soaps together, and they both were great, but Josh and I both had a preference on which one we liked the best. The first soap was this old-fashioned lye soap, and the second one was this classic oatmeal and honey soap with milk. This was our favorite. Today, though, we're going to be making the pumpkin oatmeal and the egg yolk vanilla. I bought this book, which I can also link down below for you, because when I said I wanted to get into soap making, so many of you guys recommended this book, and I've been really enjoying it. I just put the dogs up in the pantry so that I have no tripping hazards or anything like that when I get to measuring out my water and lye. I am using stainless steel bowls here because that is what I have. You don't want to use aluminum. You can use plastic or stainless steel, and I have stainless steel. So the first thing I'm going to measure out is the water. And I'm following this recipe exactly because this is a science and I'm nowhere near where I know how to make up my own soap recipes yet. Maybe one day I'll get comfortable with that, but for now, I will follow a recipe. So I'm gonna set that aside. Now I'm gonna measure out my lye because I wanna make sure I measure it into a separate container, not right in there because I might need to take some out. Before I actually start on my soap, I'm going to take a step back and I'm gonna go ahead and get these muffins in the oven just so that that is completely done before we start our soap project. I think that makes sense. So here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and spray my muffin pan. Actually, you know what I think I'm gonna use? In my stocking last year, my mother-in-law gave me these silicone muffin liners, and I'm just gonna use these. The recipe says this makes 18 muffins. I don't think I have 18 of these though. I am combining two recipes to make these muffins. A while back, I made some pumpkin muffins where the recipe said to put the cream cheese filling mixture on top before you bake them, and I really liked that. This recipe for the actual muffin portion says to put the cream cheese mixture in the muffins after they bake. So I'm just kind of adapting this recipe because I want the cream cheese mixture to bake in the oven with the muffins. My oven has preheated to 400 degrees. Put this in there. That feels good to have that in the oven before we really start diving into this soap project. To measure my lye out in, I'm gonna use this container. This has a skull and crossbones on it because I have used it for lye and I just keep it for that and I wanna know that. So that's what she recommends in the book to do, so that you don't on accident use it for anything else. For my first recipe, I have my water here and my lye, and I'm gonna very, very carefully pour this in there. This is gonna heat up quite a bit and it's gonna create fumes. That's why I want my windows open. I'm gonna mix this in. I'm gonna take its temperature. It's at 203 degrees Fahrenheit. And I need this to come down to about room temperature, a little warmer than room temperature. While this is cooling, I can set this over here and I can measure out the oils that we need for this recipe. I have 4 oils that are going into this soap, and 2 of them need to be melted. I'm gonna use this glass bowl to measure out my oils in so that I can put them in the microwave and melt them. But I'm not gonna use this to make my soap. You do not wanna use glass to make soap because it could break. And this coconut oil is hard. So let's see if I can get this out. Okay, that's perfect. Zero that out. This is cocoa butter. Oh my goodness, that right there is perfect. So I'm gonna pop this in the microwave and melt this. I have this window open. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's pouring out there. And I think this is now done. Yeah, so my coconut oil is completely melted. My cocoa butter, still there's some chunks in there, but I think I'm just gonna let the residual heat from the coconut oil melt the rest of that. And it smells incredible in here. I'm sorry if you can hear that rain really loud, but I'm trying to get some ventilation in here. I'm gonna grab this spoon here. That has too much oil on it. I don't wanna mess up my ratios here. So I'm just gently stirring this so that the residual heat will melt the rest of that. Not pushing down or anything since this is on my scale. And I need to measure out the rest of the oils, and that will help cool this because this is pretty warm at this point. And you want your lye and your oil about the same temperature from what I understand, but again, I am not someone who is an expert at making soap. Okay, I think I'm gonna call that good. That's basically melted at this point. I'm gonna zero this out again. And now I'm gonna start with my liquid oils. This is olive oil. I'm going really slow now because I can't take the oil out once it's in there. And that is perfect right there. Now I'm going to use sunflower oil. Zero that out again. Oh, that's my muffins. Okay, right there. I'm going to take this temperature. We're at 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I forgot to originally set the timer for these muffins, so I think I'm going to let them go for about a minute longer. I want to show you this new bee that I have. Boom, there's a toothpick. These might actually be done. I'm gonna give them one more minute. I already have requests for enjoying these pumpkin muffins, and I think at this point we're gonna call them done. And they look so cute. The cream cheese looks really nice on there. I'm gonna set these here. I just tried one of those muffins and they are phenomenal. Super excited about that. So that is our pumpkin going into our oil. Now we have everything measured out into this bowl that we need measured out into this bowl. I'm going to mix in that pumpkin. I'm going to need to get the immersion blender out in just a second, but I'm also going to prep my oats because this is an oatmeal soap. I have my mortar and pestle here with my oats. I'm going to grind those up a little bit. That looks like about right. I have a teaspoon of water in here, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of honey because this is a pumpkin honey oat soap. That looks like a teaspoon right there. So now it's time to go ahead and get the immersion blender out because we need to blend up that pumpkin into our oils. I'm just stirring my honey and water together. This is an immersion blender I only use for soap making. I'm loving the color of this oil base. And now we have our lye solution here. I'm gonna move my honey and my oats over just a little bit. This is another stainless steel bowl that I'm gonna set my equipment in while I work. So I'm gonna very, very carefully pour my oil mixture into my lye mixture. Everything is about the same temperature at this point. I'm gonna make sure I get all of that in there. I have all my safety equipment back on. Now I'm gonna use this immersion blender to mix all of this together until we hit traced. Basically just means when you make little drops, you can actually see the trace of where those drops were. It's still super liquidy. So this is looking really good. You can see now that when I lift this up and put little drips, you can actually see where it was before. Now we're gonna mix in our honey and water and our oats. You could probably leave the oats out if you wanted to, but I'm just following the recipe as it's written. Could maybe mix that a little bit more. I think I'm gonna mix it with the immersion blender just a little bit more. This doesn't have any essential oils or anything in it. It's really just the pumpkin that's adding the beautiful color and scent. So I guess this is technically an unscented bar of soap. The cool thing about her recipes is they fit this mold perfectly. And I have 2 of these molds. That's why I want to make 2 soaps today. Pour this in here. I think the color on this is really, really pretty. And our soap now is done really for what we need to do for it for today. I'm gonna cover it with a piece of parchment paper. I'm actually gonna bring it over here first and set this way out of the way from anything so it doesn't get knocked or bumped. So it's going straight in the middle of my table. Piece of parchment paper over the top, and I need to go grab a towel or 2 to cover them and keep them nice and warm. I have 2 towels here. There we go. That'll help them cool and cure a little bit slower. So what I'm gonna do now at this point is probably have another one of those muffins. Then I'm gonna reset and we're gonna make our second soap. I just checked my pumpkin and it is not quite ready, but it's getting close. So now we're gonna flip this page to our vanilla bean egg yolk soap. And we are going to do pretty much the same thing, but a little bit different because obviously there's different ingredients in this. It has the same base oils as the last recipe we did. So cocoa butter, olive oil, sunflower oil, and coconut oil. But obviously this is an egg yolk soap and vanilla bean. So we're gonna add egg yolks and vanilla beans, and we're not gonna add the pumpkin, the honey, or the oats. But we're gonna start the process the same way. Weighing out our water, weighing out our lye, and then weighing out our solid fats, melting those, having those heat up, and then putting our liquid fats into them to cool it down. And we're allowing our lye water mixture to cool down while we work with the fats. So everything is about the same temperature. After we process the vanilla bean and the egg yolk, we can make our soap. Now, I really wanted to get 2 bars done because I have all the soap making equipment out. I keep my soap making supplies separate from my cooking equipment, except my scale. This is the same scale I cook with, but my immersion blender and things like that are dedicated to soap making, and those are my soap making oils that I like to keep together. She has tons of recipes in this book, but I mainly picked these 2 recipes because I didn't feel like having to buy anything extra to make soap. I already had all the ingredients for these 2 recipes, so I thought that these would be fun ones to try. Plus, they sounded absolutely incredible, and I thought it would be super fun to be able to mix in
pumpkin that we grew together in the garden into a soap. I think that's super interesting. The cool thing about her book is she has a section for soaps from the garden. So there's like a tomato soap and a carrot soap, and which I think is very intriguing. The pumpkin soap is in the garden section. There's a section from the sea. There's a section from the orchard. So there's like an apple soap. And so just really unique soaps. But some of the soaps had different fats that I didn't have, and I just went ahead and wanted to use what I already had on hand on this day. Now here I went ahead and scraped out the vanilla bean seeds from the vanilla bean pod. I also went ahead and cracked open an egg and got the yolk. And we are going to temper that egg with the oils. The oils, by the time you add the liquid oils to the warmed up solid oils that have melted, they're not very hot anymore. But again, I don't want to scramble my egg because that doesn't sound very appetizing in a soap. So I'm going to take some of the warmed oil and I'm going to slowly pour that into the egg yolk and temper it just like I would if I was making a custard or something like that. Now, the reason I am using a scale for this recipe and why I am not comfortable making up my own recipe or anything like that is soap is a science. So lye, when it is in the presence of fat, it does this really crazy chemical reaction that is pretty cool, that it turns fat into soap. But you want to make sure you have the proper ratio of fat to lye, because in the final soap, you want to make sure you don't have too much lye left over. Say there wasn't enough fat to lye ratio, and have a really harsh, aggressive bar of soap that's not, soothing. But you also want to make sure that you have the correct amount of fat to lye, because if you have too much fat and not enough lye, your final bar of soap will have too much fat left in it and it will be kind of a greasy bar of soap. And so that's why it's important that you weigh out everything so you're pretty precise and you end up with a good final bar of soap that's moisturizing but yet still has the lye it has the proper ratio of lye to fat. A scale is very important when it comes to this. Here I'm taking the temperature of my lye, water mixture, and my oil. They're about the same temperature, so I can go ahead and mix those together. I'm going to use my immersion blender and blend these up until they hit trace, and then we can put it into our soap mold. And I'm really happy with these. The following day is when we're going to cut into these together and you're going to see what they look like. But I have to tell you right now that this vanilla bean soap, the color and look on it is absolutely stunning. It's pretty yellow now, but after it sits for 24 hours, it turns into this really white, creamy, it's not like bright white, it's like creamy white with the vanilla bean seeds in it, and it's beautiful.
So there, right there is trace. This looks like a beautiful vanilla custard. It's got that egg yolk color and the vanilla beans, and I'm really looking forward to this one. I wouldn't say I'm getting too much vanilla scent. It smells good, but I just don't think I'm getting the vanilla scent. But there's a lot going on in here right now, so we'll have to see what it's like once it cures. It might just be a nice kind of unscented soap again. So I'm going to get this into the same mold that I had for the last soap, because these are the soap molds I have. I don't have any individual soap molds. This recipe says that this recipe is best in individual soap molds so that it doesn't gel, I think is what it said. I'm going to have to reread it. But she said that if you don't have individual soap molds for this recipe, you can let it cool in the fridge, and that will help prevent the gelling. The little black dots in there, those are the little tiny vanilla beans. Now I remember she said we need to cover it with a piece of parchment, and then I need to reread this. So, at trace, pour into prepared molds. This soap does best when kept on the cooler side, so you may want to consider individual molds to prevent partial gel phase. See page 21. Or tuck the soap in the refrigerator for 12 to 24 hours after pouring. Keep the soap in the mold for 1 or 2 days or until easily removed, then slice into bars or unmold individual bars. Cure on a coated cooling rack or a sheet of wax paper for about 4 weeks. That's the one thing with soap, is it does have to sit and cure for 4 weeks minimum, but if you let it sit a little bit longer, from what I understand, it tends to dry out a little bit more, and then it doesn't wash away in the shower as long. So I'm gonna take this soap and tuck it in my fridge like she said. The soap is now tucked away in the refrigerator. So now what I can do is actually clean up, there's a fork on the floor I just kicked, my soap mess. I wanna get this completely clean, all the soap making supplies cleaned up, counter cleaned, all that, before I take my pumpkin out of the oven and start processing it. I think this is done. Really glad I put a piece of parchment paper down, because that would have probably ruined my baking sheet, but look at all that water. So we'll take care of that. I think what I'm gonna do, because I don't necessarily need this to cook anymore, is I'm gonna turn both of these ovens off. They have been in there for quite some time. Woo, steamy. Pretty sure this is done. You know what, this bottom one is not done. So I'm gonna put this back on. Bake 400. Let me just double check this one. Those are done for sure. I might as well keep it on while I clean up the kitchen. I'm trying to decide if tomorrow I'm gonna make more soap, because I have all my soap making supplies out. This is the oil that I use to make soaps with. This is my blender. I don't know. I already got the dishwasher going. The sun is coming out, which is nice. We got in here relatively early. A lot of times lately I've been starting my projects later in the afternoon than I'd like. So it's nice today to get in here and get going quickly. I've been using these Swedish dishcloths that my mom loves so much recently, and I have fallen in love with them too. I am gonna pop this in the pantry up high, and I will decide if later this week I'm gonna make more soap, or if I'm gonna bring this downstairs and put it all away. The reason I was thinking it would be nice to make a couple more bars is because they have to sit for so long. It'd kind of be nice to have 4 or 5 batches that are different made up, so we can kind of figure out what is our absolute favorite. So I think I'm gonna attempt to try to get these out of the oven. These pumpkins are absolutely full of water. So I think before I attempt to take this cookie sheet or baking sheet out of the oven, I better remove some of that water. I did also sweep and mop my floors, just so that in case any of that lye fell on the floor, that will be up at this point. I'm gonna go dump this down the sink. I think I'm gonna have to come at it from this angle. This is a new bowl, by the way. This is not one of the bowls that I was making soap with. I think it'll be much safer pulling this out of the oven with those about probably 10 cups of water out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this oven off. I'm getting a pumpkin facial. It's steaming so much. And there's still quite a bit of water in there. So what I think I'm gonna do is take another bowl and a colander, and I'm gonna actually scoop this pumpkin into a colander so that it can drain just a little bit while I continue to scoop. And I think these pumpkins that I put in the oven today are gonna be plenty of pumpkin for me to get through one entire year of our pumpkin needs. At this point, this needs to cool before I can package this up in freezer bags. Our muffins are done, our soaps are done. This pumpkin has probably another 20 to 30 minutes. It's still not fully tender on the inside. I mean, it's soft, but I want it a little bit more tender, and it's just starting to release all of that moisture. I need to sit down now at this point. I've got a lot of computer work I need to get done. So I'm gonna set a timer for 20 minutes. I'm gonna start my computer work, and then I will come back to this pumpkin once this is cooled, because I don't wanna put this really, really hot pumpkin into a freezer bag, and we will be able to start packaging this up. I just have this still straining so it can continue to release any extra moisture, and it still is dripping quite a bit of moisture out of there. So I want a nice, thick, beautiful puree going into the freezer so that it is like canned pumpkin consistency. There is no safe canned puree, home canned puree recipe out there. It's not been tested, so there's no recommended recipe. So when you can pumpkin, you have to can it in chunks in water. And that kind of waterlogs the canning. And so you have to strain the pumpkin when you open the jar anyway. So that's why I don't do that. I just put it in the freezer because I know I need to strain the freezer pumpkin anyway. So I'm just gonna skip the whole canning process altogether. So this is gonna sit here. I'm gonna get to work at my computer, and then we'll be back when this pumpkin is done.
It is much, much later in the day. What I ended up doing was letting the pumpkin, the first pumpkin that I took the flesh out and put in the colander, I just let that sit, cool down to room temperature. And then the pumpkin that was in my oven that wasn't done cooking, instead of turning the oven back on, I ended up just turning the oven off and letting the pumpkin continue to cook and get soft and then cool in the oven. And I was doing other things for many hours, and then I came back to this pumpkin that needed to be put up. So here I have quart size gallon bags, that's not right. I have quart size freezer bags. And on the freezer bag, I wrote 2 cups, 2025. I wrote 2025 even though these pumpkins were grown in 2024 because I processed them in 2025. I went back and forth what I should do on this, but I figured these are going into the freezer in 2025, so that's what I'm going to write on the freezer bag. For some reason, I had a little bit of mental gymnastics trying to decide, am I supposed to write 2024 because I grew these pumpkins in 2024, or am I supposed to write 2025 because I processed them in 2025? All that to say, I wrote 2 cups, 2025. I put 2 cups, give or take, of pumpkin puree into each freezer bag, try to get as much air out of those freezer bags as I could. And then I am going to put these on a baking sheet before I pop these into the freezer because I want them to freeze flat. I want them to freeze flat for a couple of reasons. One, I want them to freeze flat so that they thaw quicker. And if I had them bunched in a big ball at the bottom of the bag, then they would take longer to thaw. And because these are frozen, there is obviously that step before you can make like pumpkin muffins or pumpkin bread or pumpkin whatever it might be. You need it obviously thawed before you can use it. So having it conveniently put in the package to thaw the quickest is the most convenient. So that's why I'm doing that. Then I also am going to put it on the cookie sheet so that it freezes flat and it doesn't freeze in the grates of my freezer. And then I'm not going to be able to get them out of the shelves on the freezer because they are frozen in between the grates. So that first set of pumpkin was my first pumpkin that we had pulled out of the oven. And now we're on to the second white pumpkin. A lot of times what I've done in the past is actually mix all the pumpkin together, but I didn't do that on this day. I just, one set of pumpkin is one set of pumpkin in one bag, and I didn't mix them together. I did taste both pumpkins, just the pumpkin puree on its own, and I don't love eating pumpkin on its own, but it did have really good pumpkin flavor. So I know that when I use that pumpkin in either a savory application or a sweet application, it's going to be very, very flavorful. I do like making a lot of savory recipes with pumpkin. So I like to make pumpkin curry and pumpkin pasta. I've made 2 different types of pumpkin pasta. I've done my mother-in-law's recipe, which is fantastic. And I've done a pumpkin lasagna, which we really, really loved with a bechamel sauce. And I'm always looking for more savory applications to do with pumpkin. And it makes a really good sauce from what I've found in the past. But if you guys have any really good savory pumpkin recipes you want to share, I would be all ears. Because obviously there's just a whole list of sweet pumpkin applications. So I do enjoy using my pumpkin from my garden in both sweet and savory when I can. So at this point I got 8 2-cup quart bags in my freezer. So we got a total of 16 cups of pumpkin, which I think for me, that's going to be plenty. And so I do still have about 6 pumpkins or so down in the pantry, and they don't look like they are showing any signs of going bad anytime soon, even though they were harvested in September. So what I will do is once my chickens eat the pumpkin that I gave them on this day, then I will just slowly dole out more pumpkin to the chickens. They have definitely been eating a lot of pumpkin this summer. Pumpkins are one of my favorite things to grow, so I grow way more pumpkins than we need for ourselves to enjoy to eat, but I love to decorate with pumpkins and they just bring me so much joy. They come in all sorts of random different sizes, and to me it's mind-blowing that you can plant this little seed. I guess pumpkin seeds aren't super little compared to lots of other seeds, but you can plant a seed in the ground and it can grow this massive pumpkin. Ever since my first year gardening, I've been growing pumpkins and loving it. I think that's probably why they have my heart, because my first year gardening, I did not have like the most abundant garden because I didn't know what I was doing, but my pumpkins did well. And I grew a full-size jack-o'-lantern size pumpkin in my first year garden, and I was blown away that you could grow a full-size pumpkin in your backyard. And so ever since then, pumpkins have my heart. And it's kind of fun being able to find new ways to use pumpkin, like in our pumpkin soap, which I think is pretty incredible. So not only did we get some pumpkin muffins made, we got our 2 soaps made on this day, we processed all the pumpkin for the year, and we got the kitchen clean, which feels incredible. I am going to store these muffins in the refrigerator just because they have cream cheese in them and they're fresh milled flour. So those are going in the fridge. I was just giving you a little peek of the soap in the fridge, and here is all the pumpkin that we put up. So thank you, friend, for being here as we yet again had a very productive day in the kitchen, not only doing fun culinary activities, but making some really beautiful soaps that my family can enjoy. If you're new, consider subscribing, because tomorrow or the next time we're in the kitchen, we're going to cut into that soap. If you've been here before, I greatly appreciate you. I can pop some more videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.